Never wait 8 years to listen to a mother who hasn't stopped praying. You'll never believe what was hidden in the back of a weathered Bible, a recording that would one day free an innocent man. But for 8 long years, no one cared. No judge, no lawyer, no system. Only one person believed, his mother. She didn't need an apology, just one moment where someone finally listened. Before we dive in, let me ask, how are you really? How are your knees, your sleep, your spirit? How are your grown kids, the grandbabies? Are they calling more often now, or still running around like life has no breaks? If you're anything like me, you've learned time doesn't heal everything, but truth just might. And that's why I'm telling you this story, because this one starts in silence and ends in a voice that could no longer be ignored. Her name was Evelyn Rousseau, 63 years old and barely 5 feet tall, but her presence filled any room she entered. Her voice had grown quiet with age, but it still had weight. The weight of prayer, the weight of memory. She lived alone in a house on the edge of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, a creaky porch, 2 rocking chairs, and a garden her son once helped her build. His name was Darnell, and he was taken from her at 26, convicted of a crime he didn't commit. The trial lasted 4 days. The sentence was life, no appeal, no retrial, no room for doubt. And Evelyn, who swore she had proof he was with her that night, home, eating gumbo and watching old westerns, was never even called to testify. She tried to tell them, the lawyers, the court, the local paper. "I got a recording," she said, her hands trembling. "He was talking to me. I taped it on my old cassette." They laughed, dismissed her, said it wouldn't hold up, said she was confused. So she did the only thing she could do. She placed the tape in an envelope, slid it between the pages of her Bible, Psalm 34 to be exact, and waited. Every Sunday she brought that Bible to church. Every night she prayed over it. Every holiday she set a place for Darnell at the table. 8 years. Until one day, something changed. A new lawyer, fresh eyes, a reopened case, the winds of justice shifting, just slightly. And when they finally asked her if she had anything to add, she stood up in court, straightened her skirt, looked the judge in the eye and said, "I don't need anyone to apologize. I just need you to listen." The courtroom was silent, not the heavy kind that follows bad news, but the breathless silence of something long buried, rising up. Evelyn reached into her handbag, the same brown leather purse she'd carried to every appeal, every prayer vigil, every lonely walk home from the courthouse. She opened her Bible, Psalm 34, and gently removed a small padded envelope. Inside was a cassette, the kind no one used anymore. It looked like nothing. But when the bailiff inserted it into the player, brought in at the last minute, and the room heard the mechanical click of the play button, everything changed. It began with background noise, clinking dishes, a faint TV Western theme song. Then came a voice, a man's voice. "Darnell." "Ma, you put extra okra in this again?" he said, laughing. Evelyn's voice followed. "Don't act like you don't like it." The date and timestamp was embedded from the original answering machine, 9:23 p.m., the same night the crime allegedly took place. Then, unexpectedly, came a news broadcast in the background, announcing the traffic jam that had supposedly prevented Darnell from being in Pine Bluff at all that evening. The timing was irrefutable. He couldn't have been at the scene. He was home, with his mother, eating gumbo. In the courtroom, jaws tightened. Pen stopped moving. The assistant district attorney shifted in his chair. The judge leaned back, eyes unreadable. One juror reached for a tissue. Evelyn didn't cry. She didn't blink. She just folded her hands, looked straight ahead, and waited. After the tape ended, her lawyer, a young woman named Camille Davis, barely in her 30s, fierce like lightning in a storm, stood. "We've filed a motion to vacate the conviction based on this new evidence." We believe it proves beyond question that Mr. Darnell Rousseau was not only wrongly convicted, but deliberately ignored. The judge didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Evelyn, not as a system looks at a statistic, but as a man looks at a mother who's been waiting 8 years to be heard. Let me ask you something. What would you do if the thing you needed most to prove your loved one's innocence fit in the palm of your hand, but no one would listen? Would you keep holding it for 8 years, hoping one day someone might care enough to press play? When the tape stopped spinning, the room didn't explode. It cracked quietly, like ice under pressure. Judge Morrison looked down at his papers, his jaw tight. He was a man known for 2 things: punctuality and pride. He had presided over Darnell's original trial. And now, staring at a piece of evidence he had once dismissed as irrelevant, he didn't seem ready to swallow his own verdict. He adjusted his glasses. "I will review this evidence in full. Court is adjourned until Thursday." A gavel tap, just one. Then silence again. Evelyn stood slowly, not stiffly, deliberately, like someone who's been standing up for 8 years without being seen. Camille leaned over and whispered, "That was it. That's the crack in the wall." But Evelyn didn't smile. She just said, "Cracks aren't the same as openings." Outside, reporters waited like hounds. Microphones thrust forward. Flash bulbs popped. Someone shouted, "Mrs. Rousseau, why did you wait so long to share the tape?" She stopped, turned slowly, and looked at the man who'd asked. "I didn't wait," she said, calm as water. "You just weren't listening." Then she kept walking. Back at home, Evelyn sat on her porch under the same chipping paint ceiling where she used to hum lullabies to Darnell. She held the Bible in her lap, now missing its secret. Psalm 34 stared up at her, worn from years of fingers and tears. The phone rang. It was Camille. "They're already filing motions to suppress the tape, claiming chain of custody violations," she said. Evelyn nodded, unsurprised. They'd rather question the tape than their own mistake. But something else was stirring. The article Camille submitted to the Arkansas Defenders Coalition had gone viral. Thousands of shares, dozens of emails from other mothers, Black, brown, poor, who had stories just like hers, and one message from a man named Reverend Leroy Stokes. "I want to hear your full story. Our pulpit is ready." Evelyn blinked at the screen. 8 years, no one called. Now everyone wanted to listen. But where were they when it mattered? Let me ask you, what do you do when the world finally leans in, but it's too late to undo the years they let you scream into silence? The news called her the mother who waited. Her face was on every local TV station. Clips of her courtroom statement, "I don't need anyone to apologize, I just need you to listen," circulated like scripture. People printed it on posters, churches quoted her in sermons. Even teenagers posted it on social media with hashtags, "Listen to Black Mother's Justice for Darnell but Evelyn." She didn't want to be a headline. She wanted her son home. The state had yet to fully vacate Darnell's conviction. He was still behind bars, no longer serving a sentence, now awaiting judgment. They moved him to a cleaner facility, gave him visitation rights. Evelyn visited every Thursday. She brought gumbo in a thermos and Psalm 34 tucked into her purse. But prison had changed him. His eyes had grown cautious, his hugs briefer. He smiled, but it never reached the corners. "You okay, baby?" she asked one day, brushing his hair back like he was 10 again. He shrugged. "I will be, when they say it out loud, that I didn't do it." She held his hand. "They will, you hear me?" He nodded. But Evelyn saw it, the doubt, the fear that after everything, the system might still find a way to twist the truth back into chains. Meanwhile, Camille was on fire. She had filed 3 motions, contacted the Innocence Project, and called out the original prosecutor in a radio interview. They don't get to pretend it didn't happen, she said. Not after 8 years. But Evelyn, watching from her kitchen, didn't cheer. She stirred her tea and whispered, "They'll come for her next." Because that's what the system does. When the truth can't be denied, it turns to punishment, retaliation. And Evelyn knew if Camille kept pushing, she wouldn't just be risking her career, she'd be risking everything. Then came the call, anonymous, low voice. "You should have stayed quiet. Your boy ain't out yet." Might not ever be. Click. Evelyn didn't tell Camille. She didn't tell Darnell. She went outside, sat on her porch, and whispered, "Lord, I've waited 8 years. If this is the cost of truth, I'll pay it. But don't let them silence her too." Let me ask you, friend, what would you do if the truth finally came, but it threatened the people who helped you carry it? Would you speak louder, or take the truth and walk away? By midsummer, the walls began to buckle. The state's attorney general called for an independent inquiry into Darnell's conviction. The public defender's office was flooded with case files from families who had lost loved ones to rushed trials, ignored evidence, and prejudice in plain sight. Camille was everywhere: radio, panels, podcasts. She was rising like a new kind of lawyer, one who didn't just know the law, but fought it when it failed. But then the pushback came. Threatening letters, vandalism, anonymous emails, and one morning, she found her tires slashed in front of the courthouse. Camille called Evelyn that night. "I'm okay, just rattled," she said. "You're not okay," Evelyn replied. "You're being hunted." "I can't stop now. They'll just bury someone else." Evelyn paused, her fingers clutched the phone tight. "Then let me stand next to you. Not behind, next." The next day, Evelyn agreed to give her first public speech. It wasn't in a courtroom or on TV, but at a town hall held in a school gymnasium where folding chairs creaked under the weight of too much truth. Evelyn stepped to the mic. No notes, no prep, just her. 8 years ago, I was told my son didn't matter, that my words were noise, that a tape in a Bible was worthless, but I didn't keep it because I thought it would win. I kept it because it was true, and I'm here now, not because I want revenge. I'm here because some other mother is sitting at her table tonight, staring at an empty chair, and no one's listening to her either. The crowd stood before she even finished. It wasn't a roar, it was a rise, like something ancient had been woken. Later that week, the judge formally vacated Darnell's conviction, a clean slate, a formal apology. But Evelyn didn't smile. When the judge said, "We recognize the grave error," she simply nodded and walked out. Reporters followed her to the parking lot, begging for a comment. "What now, Mrs. Rousseau? What happens next?" She turned. The same thing that should have happened 8 years ago. And she left. But let me ask you something. What do you do when justice finally shows up? Years too late, bruised and broken, dragging its feet behind you. Do you celebrate, or do you mourn the time it stole? The day Darnell walked free, the sun was out, but the sky felt unfamiliar. Evelyn stood outside the prison gate in her Sunday dress, the same one she wore to his trial. She held a thermos of gumbo and a folded sweater, like he'd be cold somehow, like she could still mother him the way she used to. When he stepped out, they looked at each other, two people carrying time like a wound between them. He didn't run to her. He walked, slow, careful. She didn't cry. He didn't speak. They hugged like strangers who remembered loving each other. The house was just as he remembered. The same porch swing, same creaky step on the way in, same pictures on the wall, except he wasn't in any after 2014. That night, Evelyn made dinner. He barely ate. He wandered the yard, sat on the edge of his childhood bed, flinched at the sound of dogs barking in the distance. At midnight, Evelyn found him awake on the couch. "You okay, baby?" I don't know what okay means anymore. The weeks that followed were hard. People dropped by with casseroles and congratulations, but Darnell avoided the door. A local podcast wanted an interview. He said no. A cousin offered him a job. He declined. I don't need pity, he said. I need to figure out who I am now. Evelyn didn't push. She washed his clothes, cooked his meals, sat beside him without filling the silence. But one night she broke. Do you blame me? She asked. He turned surprised. For what? For not fighting harder? For letting it happen? He took her hand. I blame the system. I thank you for surviving it. Still, the tension lingered. One night, Darnell found her sitting on the porch, holding her Bible. She wasn't reading, just holding. Ma, why Psalm 34? She smiled. It's the only one that told me the Lord was near to the brokenhearted. He nodded. Then he took the Bible from her hands and gently slid the empty tape envelope back into its pages. Then maybe we leave it there, he said. But let me ask you, when the person you fought for comes home, but their soul hasn't caught up yet, how do you help them heal? Can love undo time? Can silence rebuild trust? 3 weeks after Darnell came home, Evelyn received the first letter. It was handwritten, shaky cursive, sent from a mother in Jackson, Mississippi. My son's been gone 5 years. They never called me to testify either. Then came a call from a woman in Baltimore. They said my daughter's alibi wasn't strong enough. It was me. I was the alibi. Then more, emails, voicemails, notes slipped under her door. They had heard her story, and now they were bringing their own. Evelyn didn't ask for any of this. She just wanted quiet mornings, hot tea, and the sound of her son breathing in the next room. But justice has a strange echo. Once spoken, it doesn't go back to sleep. Camille showed up one afternoon with a folder full of new cases. They trust you, she said. They don't trust the system, the courts, or even me, but they trust you. Evelyn looked at the folder. Her hands didn't move. I'm not a lawyer, she said softly. You're a mother, Camille replied. That's what they need. Darnell noticed the shift. He saw the mail piling up, the phone ringing more often. He asked one night over dinner, Ma, are you about to start this all over again? She didn't answer right away. Some of them got nobody else, she said. You had me. He nodded slowly. Then I guess they've got me too. Together they began replying. Sometimes it was just a phone call, sometimes a prayer. Sometimes they sent Camille to look into the case. Other times they simply listened for hours to voices that had gone unheard for too long. They called it the Psalm 34 Project, not a foundation, not an organization, just a mother and her son. Opening the Bible and saying, tell me. But let me ask you something, Mike. If you were finally given peace and then saw someone else drowning in the silence you just escaped, would you look away? Or would you sit beside them, open your hands, and say, I've been there too? By autumn, the Psalm 34 Project had touched more than 40 families. Some were small-town mothers. Some were ex-inmates writing from halfway houses. Some were siblings, godparents, even strangers who'd witnessed something wrong and were told, that's just how it is. Evelyn's phone was full. Her mailbox overflowed. Her porch, once a place of quiet rocking chairs and warm tea, now saw people every other day seeking hope. And with hope came resistance. One morning, a letter arrived with no return address. You're stirring ghosts that should stay buried. Another time, Darnell came home from the grocery store, pale-faced. There was a man parked outside, Ma, just sitting, staring. Camille's office was broken into. Nothing stolen, but everything touched. They reported it. The sheriff dismissed it. Camille wanted to pause the outreach. Let's lay low for a while, she said. We've rattled too many doors. But Evelyn shook her head. I rattled one door for 8 years and nobody came. Now they're knocking on mine. I'm not going to leave them on the porch. So they adapted. Meetings went private, letters were vetted. Darnell set up a small office in the back shed and started digitizing every story, every file, every tape they received. One night, he found Evelyn staring at the tape deck she'd used all those years ago. "You okay?" She nodded. "Just remembering how quiet the house used to be." He smiled. "You hated that silence." She chuckled, tired. "I did, but sometimes the noise ain't much kinder." The media caught wind again. A major national network offered a documentary deal. Camille was thrilled. This could blow it wide open. But Evelyn paused. Will it help the families, or will it just tell my story again? Camille blinked. Maybe both. Evelyn looked out the window. Then they better get it right. And let me ask you, friend, when the truth finally gets loud enough to be dangerous, will you still tell it? Or will you turn it down just to feel safe again? The interview was scheduled for a Tuesday. National news, prime time, a 2-part special titled The Mother, the Tape, and the Truth They Ignored. Producers wanted Evelyn on set. Hair, makeup, camera angles, lights. They rehearsed her lines, tested her mic, offered soft background music. But Evelyn sat there, stiff, in her Sunday dress. She didn't want polish. She wanted presence. The host asked the usual questions. What made you hold on to that tape for 8 years? What would you say to the prosecutor who never let you speak? What's it like to finally be believed? Evelyn gave quiet answers. Not dramatic, not tearful, just steady. But then came the final question. Do you want to forgive the system that failed you? She paused, looked into the camera, not at the host, not at the lights, but through the screen, as if speaking directly to the women watching from kitchens, from nursing homes, from prison phones. I don't need to forgive it, she said. I need it to stop doing this to the next mother. The episode aired that night. Social media exploded. The Psalm 34 Project website crashed from traffic. Donations poured in. Lawyers across the country reached out, offering time pro bono. But something else happened too. Darnell got a letter, no name, just a warning. Your mother keeps talking. Somebody's going to shut her up. They showed it to Camille. She sat in silence for a while, then asked, Do you want to stop? Evelyn looked at her son, looked at the tape recorder on the kitchen table, looked at the Bible. No, she said. I want to testify. Camille blinked. In court? In Congress? Within weeks, Evelyn was invited to speak at a Senate hearing on wrongful convictions. And there, under oath, in front of rows of officials and cameras and history itself, she said, I don't want compensation. I don't want a ceremony. I want a system where mothers don't need proof in a cassette to be heard. The room fell silent. Again, not from shock, but from something deeper, recognition. But I ask you this from the bottom of my soul, if given one chance to make the world just a little less cruel, would you take it, even if it cost you the quiet life you finally earned? Would you speak, knowing they might never thank you, but someone else might live freer because of you? 1 year later, Evelyn sat alone in her backyard garden, the air thick with late spring. The world had moved on. Headlines faded, the spotlight turned, but the letters never stopped. Every week, someone new wrote in. I heard your voice. You reminded me of my mama. I kept my proof in a shoebox for 12 years. Darnell found peace slowly. He started working with youth, telling his story not to warn, but to build. Every system's got cracks, he told them. Be the pressure that splits it open. He moved into his own place, a tiny house not far from Evelyn's, with room for music, books, and breath. Sometimes they still sat together on Sunday nights. Gumbo, westerns, the Bible between them. He didn't flinch at dogs barking anymore. He laughed now, not like before, but real. Evelyn? She still answered letters, still kept Psalm 34 open, still didn't ask for apologies. But one morning, she found something on her porch, a single cassette tape, no note, just 3 words scratched into the label. "I believe you." She smiled and whispered, "Took you long enough. Let me leave you with this. Some truths arrive late, some never come at all. But when they do, even if it's through a mother's trembling hands and a cassette hidden in a Bible, they change everything." This story isn't just about Evelyn. It's about all the mothers ignored, doubted, erased. It's about you, because maybe you've been Evelyn, maybe you've been Darnell, or maybe you're the one who still has a tape waiting to be heard. So if this story moved you even a little, like it, share it. Comment below, tell your story, and most of all, subscribe to Black Women, where the voices they tried to bury rise. Because someone out there is still waiting for the world to finally press play.